안녕하세요.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Asia Pacific Young Leaders Forum. It's the first event, and as far as I know, you are in session 3. It is called Youth Leader Talk Show. And the topic and the title today is MZ Generation and Sustainable Future. We are joined by 3 young politicians, and I would like to introduce these 3 speakers. Ms. KANG Min-jin, representative of the Youth Justice Party of Justice Party. She's joined us online. Good afternoon. My name is KANG Min-jin from the Youth Justice Party. I wish I could meet you on site, but I'm happy to be here online. Now, Kim Soo-min, a member of the 20th National Assembly of the R.O.K. Good afternoon. My name is Kim Soo-min. Now, Mr. Dong-hak. Good afternoon. My name is Park Won-ho from Seoul National University.
Thank you. So if you look at the program, I saw a lot of big topics and big ideas written on it, like previous generations' inequality and the disappointment of the youth, and the talk show is going to discuss how youth is disappointed in the previous generation. But if you allow me to share my idea, I think it is very difficult for young generation to voice their opinions in the political scene. So you are playing a very important role as 3 young politicians. So about the future going forward, what the role you're going to play is also important, but what you have done so far matters as well. So this is a talk show basically. I hope we can make it fun. What I'm proposing is this. So taking turns, I'm going to give each of you 10 minutes to kick off the discussion. You can share your ideas, and we have a lot of tricky, difficult questions loaded for you. And over the last several weeks, I think this host and organization, the staff members of the organizing committee here had an event on the social media, so we have collected a lot of good questions. And I also use my social media to collect some questions that I can give you. And I believe some of the questions are going to be very tricky. I hope that since this is a rare opportunity that we invite all of you here, we can listen to your opinions about the tricky questions I'm going to throw. With that, this is the Korean alphabetical order, so I will just follow the order in the program. So we will begin with representative of the Youth Justice Party, Ms. Kang. And after giving each of our panelists 10 minutes, I will begin the Q&A session. With that, over to you, Ms. Kang.
얼굴이 잘 보이시는지
I'm not sure you can see my face clearly. I am given for 10 minutes for my little presentation, and I was told that the topic today is the MZ generation and suggestions for them in the sustainable future. In particular, I would like to touch upon some social issues for the most vulnerable. I would like to start my talk with a question. Do you think Korea is an advanced country? A lot of you nodded. We indeed became an advanced country in terms of economy and some diplomatic powers. It is for sure that we just became an advanced country. Older generations remember the difficult times in the Korean history. However, our generation and the future generation is enjoying the benefits after the agony of Korea. Then now let me change my question a little bit. Yes, we are an advanced country, but do you believe that we are living in life conditions as a nation, advanced nation? If I change my question a little bit like that, I don't think many would agree as much as you did with my first question. I'm sure you've traveled overseas before.
높은 이선진국이라고 하는 나라들의
If you think of those typical advanced countries,
청년들을 때로는 부러워하는 마음이 들거든요.
sometimes we
뭔가
envy those youth
우리나라가
in those advanced
발전이
countries, and
됐다는 그런
sometimes we
생각을
wish that we were
해볼
born in those
수도 있습니다.
countries.
이것처럼 우리 나라가
So
선진국이어야 되는 상태는 이미 우리가 도달을 했기
we've
때문에
already reached the
그렇다면
point that
어떻게
our
우리
nation is an advanced
나라를
country. Now our task is to elevate the life conditions
지금 이 시대에
in
가졌고
our surroundings
지금
to become a
청년들이
genuine
살아가고 있는
advanced
이 시대의
nation.
상태다.
And that is the task
이렇게
for young
생각을
generations and the
해보게 됩니다.
youth of Korea.
우리나라가 경제 규모에 있어서
In terms of
선진국이라는 것은 이미 국민들이
economy, we are already an
우리
advanced country.
에서
You know, Jungtat already designated Korea as one of the advanced nations. And President Moon also mentioned that we should be proud of our status, and at the same time, we have to bear heavy burdens to be responsible in the international society. President Moon also added, behind our economic growth and achievement, there are some social issues like suicidal rate and low birth rate, and we have mounts of social issues and dark side of the society. And as the president mentioned, most citizens feel that it is not easy to live as a Korean citizen in Korea. We live in a busy life and sometimes it's harsh. Compared to our parents' generation, the younger generations are going through more difficult times. A lot of people agreed. And if you think of a low birth rate, that suggests the idea. I don't want to say that younger generations should have more children in the future, or having more children is the only answer to solve social issues. However, this phenomenon greatly demonstrates what the situations the youth have. So if you think of giving a birth, that is something that we expect the future rather than the past or today. Or at least we can maintain the life conditions, living conditions now. And I believe that's one of the benefits that we expect from giving a birth. But a lot of youth refuse to have babies because they can't guarantee and they're not sure what the future will be like. And probably the lowest birth rate that Korea is witnessing is the reason. So some women also suffer from disconnection of their career after giving a birth, and these are all interconnected. So what will be a life in an advanced nation like? And what will be the benefits that we enjoy as we live in the advanced nations? I think of three things. First, there's somebody called Kang Do-young. It's not a real name, living in Daegu. He was introduced on the news, and when he was 22, his father had a brain stroke, and he had to take care of his father while taking care of his household, and he's paid 7,000 won an hour, and every 2 hours he had to change his father's position while being hospitalized, and he needs a lot of help. But he's the only caregiver for his father while he has to do some economic activities to survive.
최근에 법원에서
And
징역형을
recently he was sentenced
R.O.K를 살해한 죄로
for 4 years
받았고요. 이
because
살해를 하고
the
나서
court
그리고
decided that
이런
he let his father died
누구한테도 도움을 받지 못하고 온전히
while
홀로
he had no help
이제
from
아버지에게
anyone.
인식을 주지 않아서
He had to stop giving food to his father.
근데 이 청년의
So if you
삶을
think of the
보면
case of Mr. Kang,
우리나라가 선진국이 맞나 이런 생각을
I
해요.
wonder if we are living in a genuine advanced country, because if you think of advanced country, you can imagine decent welfare system,
수천만 원씩 병원비로
but
흘러나가면
millions of dollars that he had to
어떤
bear
있다는 거.
to take care of his father in the hospital, and he couldn't pay the utility bills and couldn't pay for internet, and he still had to work while he was taking care of his father, and no one was able to help him.
뭐 여러 가지 기술적인 것들이 발달해도 이런
And
상황들을
these are something that government should provide help for.
감정 노동을
And
하는
a lot of
분들이
people under harsh
개인 아니라 가족한테 하는
caregiving conditions for their family,
현실이 여전히
and still we are facing such a reality in
또 두
Korea.
번째 청년의 얼굴을
And let me introduce the second case of the
이 청년의
youth.
이름은 변희수입니다.
Her name is
돌아가신
Byun
변희수
Hee-soo.
박사님 기억하시는 분들이
She
있으실 것
died recently.
같은데요.
I'm not sure if
이
you
청년
remembered
같은
her.
경우에는
She was
군인이었습니다.
originally biologically born as a man, and he joined the military because he wanted to pursue his career as a military, but he had to leave the army because he
진짜 성별에 맞게
re-identify his gender as a woman, and he asked the court to correct the gender on the documents, and he had to be kicked out. She has to be kicked out of the military
우리나라가
because of that.
우리나라의 시민들이 아직 선진국 시민의 삶을 지금 누리고 있지 못하다고
And these
생각하는데
suggest that these suggest that the citizens still don't feel that we are enjoying the benefits as advanced nations, and especially for those with abnormal gender orientation, and depending on some races, some people are discriminated, and this doesn't happen in a genuine advanced nations. For example, some advanced nations allow same-sex marriage, and they respect the population of LGBT, but it's not happening in Korea at the moment. President Moon also suggested we have to do anti-discrimination laws. We have to establish some anti-discrimination laws, but the presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung was somehow against that idea. So that illustrates two sides of our society for certain discriminating issues. And I'm not sure whether we have a consensus on non-discrimination. And the third case of the youth is Lee Sun-ho. He died this year at work. He was working at a port, did some physical labor, and he died because he was jammed under the container. If you look at the labor law, he could have survived. Some difficult and dangerous work requires some supervisors and a monitoring system with some safety gear, which Mr. Lee wasn't provided with at all.
그래서 안전관리자 한 명만
There
있었어도 죽지
was
않았고
no safety manager at the site, and that led to his death.
지시를 가했던
And his father was working with him at the site, and he had to witness the death of his own son, which is tragedy.
삶이라고 하면은
So if you think of some successful life and happy life in advanced countries, is where you realize your personal goals in career while you have work life balance, but a lot of people still suffer from long hours of labor in Korea.
경제적으로 발전을 했고
Then
또
why
기술적으로도
is
전 세계
the
안에서
nation
뚫리지 않는 그런 높은
economically
수준의
advanced
기술이라고
but
그리고 이제 우리나라에 있는 뭐 유명한
people still suffer from
있고 또
harsh
BTS가
conditions?
전
We have
세계에서
Samsung, we have BTS, who is leading the global culture,
이곳에서 살아가는 사람들이
but it's also the place where people suffer
현지인으로서 누려야 할 것들 하나도 누리지 못하는 채로 살아가고 있는가?
and they don't have to. If we are a genuinely advanced nation, these are the questions a lot of youth, including myself, have in their mind.
굉장히 가슴 아프게도 돌아가셨거나
So these youth, unfortunately and sadly, ended their lives,
감옥에 가 있고 이런 굉장히 좀
and one of them is in jail because he let his father die.
세상에 돌아봐도
But
그렇습니다.
even if you look at
주변의 청년들 보면
people around you, the youth around you,
또 이제
they also have difficulties and they couldn't pay for tuition and they had to pay for very expensive rent, but the living condition is terrible,
취업을
sometimes in the basement or on the rooftop.
하는 일들이 워라밸이 되고 어느 정도 안정적이고 또 자기
And but they
자신을
do want work-life balance,
빌드업
but
그런
it seems very far. It's more like pipe dream.
우리 세대한테는 장밋빛 꿈이 되어버린
So these remain as a rosy picture they only had in their mind.
사회적 약자와 소수자들 청년 중에서도
And the minors,
성소수자 청년도 있고
including LGBT and people with the special needs,
우리가 언론에
have even worse lives, and you often hear it from the news. And sometimes you can't even hear them on the news, and that's the reality we're facing.
그렇다면 이제 시민의 삶을
Then
바꾸고
how can we change our society and how can make our politics to change?
저와 제 또래의 우리 세대의
I am a politician because I want to shape
우리
a
사회
better future for the youth where
평등하게 살아갈 수 있는 나라
they do not feel any discrimination.
사회 운동을 하다가
And I used to do some social activities before joining the
살고 싶고
politicians community.
가능하면 좀 더 자유롭게
Anybody wants to live a decent life
자기 자신의 꿈을 쫓으면서
while chasing their dreams and goals.
이렇게 하지 않고 여유롭게 살아가고 싶은 것이
They want to feel more relaxed and sit back, and all they want is to have a decent life while moving forward for their goals. I don't think they expect too much or they hope too much. I think they deserve three rights:
어제와 오늘보다 나은 내일
future better than yesterday, and that is one thing that youth deserve.
청년들이 굉장히 지옥 같은 삶을 살고 있다라고 얘기를
The
하고
media said that the youth and the young generations live in a horrible situations of unemployment or some debt, and it's more like they're on the edge of the brink. But
우리가 청년들이 우리는 많은 걸 바라지 않아요.
we do not want a lot. We worked hard, we studied hard, and we built our career,
것들도 누릴 수 없는 이 삶에서
but we can't enjoy a little things.
조금 더 나은 것들을 많이 바랄 수도 있다고 생각해요.
And I believe that they could dream a little more than what they have now, because what they have is almost nothing. So that's something that they deserve. And they should ask the government and the nation to guarantee that little hope that they have.
그리고 마지막으로
Last,
이제 아마 다른 패널분들께서도
I'm sure other panelists will talk about it.
우리가 뭐 복지 체계나 뭐 인권 뭐
If you
이런
think
것들
about
때문에
welfare system or human rights,
무사히 논의돼서 존엄하게 죽을 수 있을까를 우려하게 되는 전 세계적인 위기
a lot
상황이
of people concern about
현재까지 영국 글래스고에 갔다
climate change. And I was in the UK until yesterday to participate in COP26 in Glasgow.
거기 다녀왔고 또 이제 그 양사국 총회 세계
And
정상회담
at the COP meeting,
전 세계 10만 명 시민들이 모여서
there were about 100,000 protesters in front of the meeting venue to express their concerns about the climate change and the government's responsibilities.
우리한테는 무사히 노인이 될 권리가 있고
We have rights to safely reach
우리 한평생을 우리도 누릴 수 있는
the point to become older persons. And it is our right to claim that for their governments.
지금보다는 훨씬 더 정치 세력화돼야 한다고
And I believe that younger generation should organize a little better community to express their opinions. I'm sure it's not easy. Some people have some experiences, especially the older generations have some activist movements in the past in their college, but I know younger generation compared to them, it's not really experienced. And older generations have more experiences when they formed certain civil rights movements in the past, but the younger generations are more individualist compared to the older generation. So it is not a favorable situation right now. So it wouldn't work if we try to do the same thing in an old way. And we're joined by other youth leaders from different political parties. And we have to come up with some measures to gather these younger generations, regardless of political parties, regardless of the interest of organizations. And it is our responsibility to push the government to have a decent and better decision making. So as a youth, I urge you to join younger generations to do their social activists. Sorry, I gave you 10 minutes. And the organizers said that you pass way after 10 minutes. Are you wrapping up? Yes. So I urge you to join the younger generations around you, including the audience today, and I urge your interest and the support. And we have more difficult questions later on, and you get to answer those questions later.
Maybe you wanted to avoid these difficult questions, but let us give the microphone over to the next panelist. But to sum up your points, you have touched upon so many diverse issues. You have shared stories about 3 young people. So, and by that, you touched upon well-being, welfare, poverty, labor, environment, and minority. You have shared 3 unfortunate stories that we face, and how the society that we are living in can address these issues. So you have touched upon so broad issues. I think we will have a chance to talk about some more of the detailed issues later on. With that, let me pass the microphone over to CEO Kim sitting next to me. Can I begin? Yes, why don't we give her a big hand before she begin? Thank you. I didn't mean to get this applause, but thank you. And thank you, Ms. Kang, for the nice speech. It is my first time to be in Jeju for this type of discussion and conversation. I was very excited to engage in this constructive dialogue with all of you. So once again, I'm Kim Soo-min. Nice to meet you all. As a uni student, I launched a marketing company, and in the previous National Assembly, when I was 29 years old, back then I was the youngest person to become the member of the National Assembly. And now I am currently working on the rebranding of the party that I belong. For 5 years, I have been working as a politician, policy maker, and decision maker. I engaged in making policies for youth, but many of my attempts failed, so I wondered why. What did I do wrong? And in the run up to the presidential elections, I see a lot of candidates giving good policy regarding youth, and direction wise, they have nothing wrong. So, what is wrong with the youth policies? So, I want to talk about this speed. If we renovate speed, we can see the future of the youth. I want to talk about the methodology behind youth policy. Many senior politicians say that in life what matters is direction, not speed. So even if you are a slow walker, if you are walking in the right direction, you can get there in the right place, in the right destination. I believe many of you heard the same thing on and on. However, in 2021, the year we are living in, is this mantra still working? I don't think so. The saying itself sounds good, that what matters is direction, not speed. It sounds good. But in reality, when we reach there late, there is no fruit left for younger generation. And sometimes the direction matters because, ironically, we want to get there faster than other players. So I think maybe this mantra is a little bit outdated. I wanted to see different perspectives regarding speed from different generations. Let me talk about 100 million won. In any young generation, do you have 100 million won in your savings account? I believe few of you does. The minimal living expenses that is needed for a person is 1.09 million won. As for an average young person to collect 100 million won with this minimum wage, minimum living expenses, it takes 20 years. Let me put this issue into this perspective. In 2012, one Tesla is sold at 100 million won. And in 2021, the second-hand Tesla S that is 12 years old, of course from the 2012, sold at 50 million won. But then let me think about this. In 2012, 15,000 shares of Tesla was 100 million won, and in 2021, the same amount of share costs 14 billion won. And once again, put this into another perspective. The annual starting salary of the grade 9 civil servant, which is the lowest, is 25 million won a year. But then, if you want to buy a house, how much money do you need? In some of the areas, this housing prices go up by 100 million won a month or 1 billion won over a several years. And when you do have capitals and when you have some shares, you can earn like tens of millions of won a year. So a decent salary of a decent office worker, which is 30 million won, does not sound like money. To young generation, the 100 million won's value is quite different to the value that is felt or shared among older generation. And as was pointed out, we are the first generation to become that is poorer than the previous generation. If I listen to many of my friends who work for like companies, many of them are frustrated. The moral compass or the value principle that normal office workers had is collapsing because they do not feel the need of saving and they do not feel the need of working hard and diligently because they feel like this means nothing. What I'm trying to say is that increase in earned income cannot keep pace with the increase in capital income in this society that we are living in. And under this context, just forcing the value of diligence to younger generation, is it meaningful? Does it mean anything? It is not about what is right or wrong. It is not about value. It is more about survival in the younger generation. Like I said, it is the first generation that can fare less than the parent generation. In this low growth era, the generation MZ is forced to compete with each other. Then what is the most valuable resource given to them? And I think that is time to shape better future. At this moment, if you ask me what is the role of the government, I would say maximizing the value of time of younger generation, which is the valuable resource that they have. Now the presidential candidates are set and they will give us a lot of like meaningful pledges. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to enhance the like perspective regarding speeds at the government level to befit the speed that MZ's generation feel. We have to make a massive investment in things like data, platform, and network so that we can create a more creative and more open society. And if that's the case, the generation MZ, which is leading the change, can utilize this infrastructure to create changes and create innovation. And this will help Korea to become a leader in the innovation sector going forward, to make sure the future generation can choose what future they want without fear, and to make sure that the future generation can can enjoy their fair share. I think politicians and politics should do a better job. And if we do not have the youth that can innovate, that means we do not have any more opportunity to growth in our society. In the run-up to the presidential election, we will listen to diverse policies for youth, but I hope that not just direction, they touch upon the value of speed so that the policies are speedy enough to befit the needs of youth generation. That is it for me. Thank you. Thank you. Please give her a big hand.
Let me paraphrase what Ms. Kim said. New economy, new circumstances. Compared to the previous ideology and ideas, maybe government policies need to quickly respond to changes in our society. And I believe you brought up some questions, some things that we can think of later on. Maybe we can put it this way. Devils usually are more detailed. So after listening to two leaders, I thought about bigger discourse. However, maybe we have to fill up with some details. Sorry to interrupt, but Before Mr. Lee deliver his speaking, the whole theme of this forum is the sustainable development. And both leaders talked about some environment that requires sustainability. And Ms. Kang mentioned not only environment, but the community requires sustainability. Ms. Kim added some ways to survive in this faster changing society. And if our society fail to respond, we can't guarantee sustainability. So last but not least, we would like to hear from Mr. Lee from Democratic Party of Korea, and I believe he has little more detailed speech regarding environment. Let's invite Mr. Lee Dong-hak. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you for inviting me. Should I sit or stand? Today I would like to talk about the earth and some waste that we create every day and how to treat them, and that's my topic today. In 2017, I started my journey in August and came back to Korea in 2019 after my world journey. So I'm probably the last human who freely traveled around the globe. And I would like to share my story. First, I started this journey not because of environment. I was highly interested in how to respond global aging. And without any solutions for global aging, we can't guarantee sustainability. And that's what I thought when I first started this journey. And Korea has the fastest pace of aging, and maybe we could be parameter for other countries to compare their situations with Korea's cases. And that is why I first started this travel. My mother assigned me as the village chief of the globe, but there are a lot of people gave me warm welcome because I was almost like a beggar. And in 157 cities in 61 countries, I visited all these mothers of the globe. And this is the map that I traveled. And I paid attention to the trend of the aging, but then I also got to learn waste treatment. Do you believe this is from a country, whether advanced or developing countries? Unfortunately, it was from a advanced country, and I had a prejudice before my trip. And I believe that maybe some country does something very well compared to others. But if you think of this country, this is surprisingly Australia. And how come an advanced nation like Australia fail to deal with waste and recycling? Then does Australia have this issue only? I don't think so. This is happening around the globe, especially in the countries that you believe that they are advanced countries. You can't imagine underdeveloped countries then. In 1950s, the globe created 2 million tons of plastic. In 2019, it's almost 400 million tons. And the pace is really fast. Can we stop this fast changing? We have great amount of waste, and what would happen in the future? If you think of the world population that is 8 billion, and imagine how much plastic they create. This is a scene from Iceland. In terms of economy, Iceland has 3 times more GDP than that of Korea, but then how about their waste treatment? They do not recycle. But what is worse is that these are shifted to underdeveloped countries. Then I visited these countries. Of course, they're not treating well, and these wastes flow into rivers and oceans. So if you think of the cycle of the economy, we have to dig some hole to bury them. And there are 2 ways you can treat waste. One, you dispose, and the other is recycling. But only less than 10% of waste is recycled around the globe. Do you think recycling is the only answer? I think it will take forever. And until we fill up with all our land with bury landfill with the trash, it will take forever. I visited Brazil, and of course they didn't do recycling. And you think, look at those laborers behind the scene, and they are manually sorting out. And soon the globe will be filled with trash. North America and Europe are reducing their waste, but globally, Asia is leading at the amount of the waste, especially in China. Even in Southeast Asia, from 6 to 12% of the global waste are found from there. And these waste move from developing countries to advanced countries, from rural areas to urban areas, from urban areas to rural areas. You see these kids play behind the waste, and these are not the waste that they discharged. These were floating from advanced countries. And if you look at this water, it's black. And they didn't even throw the trash. And I also went to Glasgow. I found something interesting. First, in lower income countries, they try to express their concerns. And second, youth and the younger generations were more active, participating in environmental activities. So basically, this trash is going to cover the whole globe. I think it is the plastic that conquers the world. In Africa, even worse. They do not have the recycling system, no collection system, no treatment system. Then these trash flows into the ocean, and it's over 10 million tons annually. US, UK, and Germany, and any other advanced countries sent their trash to countries like Kenya. And of course, they know that this trash is not going to be treated in countries like Kenya, but they sent it anyways because they just want to keep their country clean, and Korea is not the exception. But then these countries like Kenya also want to maintain a clean environment. That's why they just threw the whole trash to the ocean. Do you think Korea is an advanced country? I don't think so in this regard. So ocean ended up terrible amount of trash, and it is not yet drawn attention by political communities. And I think it is a tragedy. And we analyzed the 1,000 rivers, and mostly developing countries discharged trash. And do you think it started from developing countries? I don't think so. there is a island that is 7 to 10 times bigger than the Korean peninsula, and that is called the Trash Island. From 1950s to 2019, we have some accumulation statistics. Only 30% are recycled, and only 10% are recycled and used, but the rest of them are sent to landfill. And the entire globe is not ready to treat in the system. And we face every day great amount of the plastic and waste that you can see all these pictures. To wrap up, former Secretary General Bang Ki-moon earlier mentioned about reuse of waste. Not only recycle but reuse. And that could be our first solution. And second solution I would like to suggest is, even if the first option is successful, we will be ended up being a trash can. I went to Wien. There's a landmark. It looks like a palace, but this is actually incineration station. And over 500,000 people annually visited this incineration center. How does it happen? They don't have a bad odor because they capture the air inside and filter it. Dioxin and any other hazard substances are captured with the great technologies. So in this city of Bean, there are about 60,000 households around this incineration station, and they get provided with energy for their living from this incineration center. And I also visited Copenhagen in Denmark, and this is also incinerator station. And as you can see, it looks like a ski slope, and it is a ski slope, but it's actually built on top of incineration center, and locals loved it. How about Japan? And they have incinerator right in front of the district offices, and the locals have their little farm and garden on the rooftop, and then they utilize these places, and it is so transparent that they can find any information 24/7, so that the locals have a great belief and the faith in these incinerators. And they have something in common. Locals actively participated in operating and running in these incineration stations. So usually locals are against these facilities, but then once you become a politician, you realize that we do need certain facilities like that, but then now you are on the opposite side. So you delay your decision making as a politician, but then it's handed down to the next generation. So that goes the same in Korea. Korean politicians keep delaying what they should do, and there will be a big burden for our children's generation. And I believe that we need to build such an environment and system instead of sending our trash to other developing countries. And that's something that the Korea should try. That wraps up my presentation. Thank you.
네.
Thank you. Spring Commissioner Lee traveled around the world and took a look at the waste issue. You basically took a trip for waste, right? And you shared a lot of pictures. Thank you. I enjoyed your presentation. Not that light enjoyment, but with a serious note. I should have better managed time, but I'm here to represent so-called older generation. I already feel sorry, but I felt like with that I couldn't restrain your time, and I just let everyone to speak freely as much they want to. I think, do we have 30 minutes for discussion? Yes, I believe. I hope we can continue on our discussion from the presentations you had. I have like multiple lists of questions. But then, questions aside, I hope we can get down to the bottom of the problem here. 3 of you are here representing youth politics. But frankly speaking, when it comes to youth politics, what is the role of the youth politics, or what is the status of it? Frankly speaking, the role or the status do not really catch our attention. It is not noticeable. One of the Facebook question I got from one of my students is this. This is one of the biggest dilemma of the youth politics, but the student wrote this. To be a politician as a professional career, it is risky. The job is not secure. So the politician, is it a sustainable job I can take on? We're talking about sustainability, but politician is an important job, and it is one of the career choices that youth can take. But it doesn't seem that politician is one of the best choices that youth make. So about the sustainability of politician as a job, what do you say? And secondly, this can both be a very simple but tricky question. But if I go one step deeper, about youth politics, do we have actual own unique agenda from youth politics? Generally, we talk about future, environment, sustainability when it comes to youth politics, because we are talking about the world that the future generation will live in. So we just blindly assume that youth generation will do a better job in solving these issues. But does the youth politics has a unique characteristics? Do they have any specific or unique forte where youth generation can do a better job in solving problems in this specific area when compared to senior generation and so on and so forth? So my question is, one, is politician a sustainable job? Second, what is the unique characteristics of the so-called youth politics? What is the questions or the areas that the youth politics can better address? So these are the questions I want to throw at you. I think only when we solve these or address these questions, we can move on to the next ones. So starting from Ms. Gang first.
I try to intervene when I need to from Zoom, but it's for sure that we need to lower the barrier for younger generations to participate in political community, and we need some systematic changes. And some of the politicians in their 20s are not eligible to run for a election, and you need to gain 10 to 15% of the voting if you want to reimburse the deposit that you initially submitted. So young generations of politicians, of course, have hard time to join the established political community. So they have some systematic issues, they have some financial issues, but that's something that system should help. And each party recommend politicians to their parties, and they can include some more younger generations and new faces of politicians. Is politician a sustainable job? That was the second question I understood, and I believe that in terms of a concept of labor, our citizens deserve to have the rights of job safety, and I don't think that goes to politicians. Well, they are, first of all, elected by the citizens, for some reasons, and they need to be criticized. And when the citizens decided and realized that those politicians are not speaking up for the citizens, they can be always asked to resign. So I don't think you can simply compare politicians and other jobs. And I have some colleagues as youth politicians, and they don't regard these political activities as a job. They just want to have some social changes, and they usually started their career from a civil society, and sometimes they want to push forward with some of their belief and the commitment, and that is why they enter into political community. And I think that's the difference between a politician as a job and other typical jobs. And the third identity of youth politicians, I don't agree with the restriction of the scope of youth politicians' activities just for the younger generations. I think we need youth politicians in the course of our ultimate goal, and that ultimate goal is to review the overall social issues. And there, youth politicians can do certain roles. If you think of public awareness or popularity of a youth politicians compared to older generations, well, of course, we have some issues, and still our society does not recognize youth politicians well enough. But I don't believe politics is done by one or two great politicians. We do need, however, a decent group with a diversity, great ideology, and the spirit of societies, and without any citizens in a group who support these youth politicians, it's hard to expect more roles and responsibilities from youth politicians. So in the course of that, youth politicians can do some roles to get more people involved, and sometimes for themselves and other times for their party members and comrades. And I think it's more important to have some consensus among all different types of people. Well, Ms. Kang is actually the leader of the Youth Justice Party within Justice Party. And she's a representative, and it's very interesting organization, I think.
대한민국에서 청년의 어떤 그 정치가 따로 있다는 생각을 이제 사실 가지고서 있는 조직이신 거죠.
And it's interesting to see that the Justice Party recognizes the important role of the youth politicians. How about Ms. Kim?
네, 그
Okay. Maybe I will answer your questions first and then try to provide my opinion that might be a little bit different from yours. As a job, politician is difficult. If you fail to win the election, it becomes very difficult to get by. But I don't want to answer your question in this way. Albeit short, I have pondered upon the question, and I thought the presumption of this question is actually wrong. Many people say that politics is done by politicians, but I strongly say no to that idea. When I was a member of the National Assembly, I actually was born and currently living in the same town. And in the same town, I have a small mom and pop store that I usually go to, and I really have a good bond with her. And the mom and pop store owner says, "Oh, the politics looks difficult. I don't know about the politics, but you go hard. You go, girl." She said that to me. I was so sad to hear that because I think politics is so pervasive that it should be felt like an air. If you, for example, doctor, doctor saves people, right? If you focus not on the noun that is doctor, but to focus more on verb to save, doctors can save lives and politicians can save the society and so on and so forth. So I hope that politicians are not interpreted as person that tries to earn money through doing politics. And about the meaning of youth politics, I also believe that the question starts at the wrong place. I believe you have invited those under 40 to talk about youth politics, but I think we should have gathered like people in their 70s, people in their 20s and 40s together to talk about the youth politics, because it is very difficult to interpret what it means only among youth generation from the same perspective.
If you look at the current National Assembly and the established political communities, usually all you can see is the guys in their 50s and 60s. And that's actually the trend of other countries' Congress as well. And let's say you see politician in his 20s or 50s, you also have to think some other elements. For example, just because you're in your 20s, you do not vote for that politician in his 20s. Even if you are in your 50s and if you have a great belief in that politicians in his 20, that's how you vote. So in the past, maybe like from 15 years ago, we started to have some social discussion. We started to realize that we need to get younger generations involved in politics, because our society wanted them to speak up for themselves. So now, through the lens of the youth, some social issues are brought up because they can see some social issues that older generations cannot see. And in terms of that, I believe the young politicians enlarge the scope of the politics, and we still need to keep on. And well, in politics, we don't have everyone who are selected and voted. There are some staff members who wish to work in the public areas. So, of course, some people with more capability survive, but same in political community, we have much more people who are not actually being politicians. But sometimes they develop their capability as politicians later. And if they do their role right, and it's a good direction to change the direction of the future. So I hope more young people can participate and join us. And I would like to add a little more.
So Ms. Kang talked about institutional support. And interestingly enough, Ms. Kim, I don't know how I can accurately name your point, but you talked about politics in our daily lives, or amateurism maybe, in a very good sense. So engaging in different jobs, engaging in different daily jobs, you can take your time out of your schedule to participate in politics still. You have talked about this. So both of your standpoints may be vary depending on how we interpret it. So I want to highlight this different standpoint between you two. And some might question this, amateurism, or if the role of politician can only be assumed by people who have some free time, who have some luxury to care about politics. In that case, I will just leave it as an open question, but our younger generation have less and less free time, right? At the community level, as a society as a whole, about this question, some of the questions should be addressed by players, and if we have to solve our questions in any way, maybe we have to provide some incentive to those people who can do a better job in solving questions. That is my idea, but I will just leave it as an open question. I have a lot of posted questions, but I will touch upon some of the relatively simple ones. This is a comment from the YouTube. You said that the young people should pay attention to politics. Then what made you get interested or get involved in politics in the beginning? It is relatively simple. So taking turns, Ms. Kang first.
For me, well, it's actually a very long story, but to sum up, when I was a teenager, I was curious about the school and the social system, and I actually was not a big fan of it. For example, I was highly interested in the movement to lower the eligible age for voting to 18 years old, and I never wanted to adopt the social system forces me to do. And I wanted to be an active role. I wanted to play an active role in the society. So I started with my social activities to start with. And along the way, I realized that if I become a politician, I can actually make some tangible changes, and that is why I ended up in this party and doing political activities. We have 3 minutes, and we have to finish in 10 minutes. We even started later than scheduled. Okay, how about Ms. Kim?
So that means this is almost the final question. Alright, before entering into the politics, I had a chance to engage in a discussion or conversation with a very prominent, renowned politician who almost made it to the presidential candidate. So this is a big deal, I thought. So I wanted to summarize what I thought before I engaged in the dialogue with him, and I kind of poured out my thoughts before him. And to sum up the reason why I decided to enter into the political scene is this. As a just ordinary young person, the Conservative Party talks constantly about growth and the Liberal Party constantly talks about distribution, but I think the most important thing is survival. The politician, I think, got a huge insight from what I said, I think. So from that standpoint, I just wanted to highlight our young generation survival into the future, and I wanted to shape a society or shape platforms to guarantee youth survival in the future. That is how I entered into the scene.
When I was grade 12, I was elected as a student representative of the school, and I led the activity to eliminate the regulations on hair length, and I was pretty progressive, and teachers changed their mind later because they were told by some politicians, and it was difficult to talk to the teachers as student representatives, but some politicians encouraged the teachers to prepare for the session to talk to students, and that was the eureka moment for me that, oh, politicians can actually change something, and I felt the power and the efficiency of politicians. And I actually did some part-time when I was a university, and then I saw some great scenes of political events. Thank you. They gave me 5 more minutes after I complained about the time limit. Well, then I would like to ask these 3 speakers little more to wrap up, maybe 2 to 3 minutes for each of the speaker. First, I collected a lot of questions from various sources for this session, and one of them is related to job security. A lot of questions were concerned about job security. And another one is related to what I mentioned earlier. Do we have one identity among young generations? Maybe we have some different gender orientation. We are in the different groups, and the questions ask about your insight about social conflicts in the same generation group. So maybe you can have wrap-up comments for a minute and a half each. Maybe I will start with Ms. Kang. Of course, every youth is different. Everyone on site is different. However, it was very important to nurture more female politicians, because absolute majority used to be and still male politicians. So female politicians could bring some new issues on the table, and that is why it's important. And I believe it goes the same to the young generations. Our politics is way too old, and some parts that should represent the youth still is really minimum and minor. So we are living in the year 2021. It is very important to include more younger generation, to let them speak for their own. It's only recent we started to pay attention to social conflicts and issues among younger generations. That includes gender issues. I still believe it's a positive change, because in the past, nobody cares what teenagers had in difficulties or what they concerned. Nobody cared, and young generations were not really even interested in politics. And at least now, people started to pay attention to what young generations are like and what kind of agenda politicians should discuss for younger generations. And I think that's an obvious change, and that is positive. And I urge the audience today to move forward while being more interested in politics, and hopefully I want to see more participation from younger generations.
Thank you. Including me. I think many of people frame politicians or speakers, voice makers from one specific age range as youth politicians. When we talk about like politics or when we talk about diverse issues with my friends or colleagues, we do not frame ourselves as so-called youth. I think we can, a better alternative is future generation. We do not necessarily have to frame ourselves as youth. It is a convenient term used by senior generation to group people who are from the same age group and to conveniently pass burden to. This is the idea that I kind of had for quite a long time. This occasion is about how future generations should go in the future going forward and what the role of the government should be in supporting the movement forward. And I found the occasion very interesting. I even bought and wrote your book, Mr. Lee. I was very happy to engage in diverse discussions over diverse topics. I hope we do have more opportunities like this, and I thank you, Professor Park.
I hope to design our own lives. Instead of an observer or follower, we need to and we deserve to design our own life. Housing issues, job issues, and any other social issues illustrate the aspect of Korean society that is losing sustainability. If we have abundant resources, we're not losing them. But that is something that I felt sorry for younger generations as a politician, and I feel heavy burden. And I don't think it's something that I can do by myself. It should be done by team with more people, more groups, to have more discussions with various stakeholders in the society. So my party, Democratic Party of Korea, is preparing for the presidential election right now for next year. But in the course of that, I believe that my party should include more younger generations, and I also should do my role more. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great opportunity to have these three future leaders in politics. Well, you're still politicians, but you will lead our future, and it was a great opportunity to have some discussions with you. Thank you very much. And this is what I feel. You're all from different parties with different ideologies and different goals in your political activities, but it was a great opportunity to see you have a smooth discussion. Maybe you should have more opportunities to gather together to find something in common or some common goals, and that way we can develop and improve our politics in the future. That wraps up the session. Thank you very much.
네, 세션 종료 후에요. 저희들 연사님들 같이 사진을 찍는다고 하시는데 좀
Should we have group photo?